Hello, everyone, and welcome to For the Love of Animals, a presentation of Pinellas County Animal Services and Inspiration AM 1110 WTIS. I'm Len Szynski with the Pinellas County Communications Department. For the Love of Animals is a celebration of our connection and commitment to all things animal-related in the Tampa Bay area. And during the next hour, we'll be sharing with you information about the animals we love and the services and programs provided by Pinellas County Animal Services. You know, there are a lot of dogs and cats in Pinellas County. On this program, we have talked about the problems neighborhoods encounter with too many feral cats. We continually promote pet adoptions at Animal Services and our partner agencies, but forever homes are in short supply compared with the number of dogs looking for new homes. Recently, the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners spent 4.5 hours talking about the issues related to cats and dogs and spay and neutering. And with me today to talk about what was discussed at that meeting and new strategies that emerged for controlling the population of dogs and cats in Pinellas County is the Director of Pinellas County Animal Services, Mo Freaney.
Hi, Len.
Hi, Mo. How are you? It's
good.
always good to see you. Every now and then we get you here on the program.
Yeah, and it's always nice.
It's always
here.
nice for me, too. Absolutely. It's always nice to talk to the person in charge of the organization. And a wonderful job everybody does there. I know you were so gracious in recognizing the efforts of your staff during the meeting, and certainly they all deserve lots and lots of credit.
We have great staff. They have hard jobs. They love animals, and they're trying to make the lives of the animals better every day.
Well, you know, and I wanted to mention that I watched the meeting in the assembly room. A lot of people came to the meeting. Lots of impassioned opinions were heard, but it was kind of funny because even friend and foe alike seemed to want the same thing, even though they were on different sides of the issue. They all wanted what was best for the animals.
That's right. That's right. And I mean, I always say, it's important that we can kind of differ on what some of these solutions are because there's no real clear answers to some of these things with pet overpopulation and trying to create better owners for pets. And so there's no good answers, but it's important that those of us who love animals continue to work together. And
that's kind of the crux of the program. There are a lot of dogs and cats out there, actually too many for Animal Services or any of the partner agencies to really handle.
It's really tough. I showed a flow chart, and really the kind of the difficulty of the shelter is you have these animals coming in, and we have about 45 animals a day coming in.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, that's 270 animals a week. And so that flow of them coming into the shelter and getting back out of the shelter for adoptions, et cetera, is really important. Now, one of the good news things is it's still difficult. We still have too many animals, particularly certain breeds that we get more of that are harder to adopt. But the good news is Pinellas, as well as the SPCA of Pinellas, has actually had a decline over the last 5 years of impounds. So we're not sure all the things that have led to that, but that's at least a good sign, and it may be that some of the voluntary spay and neuter efforts that have happened over the last 5 years are working somewhat. So.
Well, first of all, one of the goals of Animal Services is to find homes, new forever homes for the animals that come in to the agency, and you've been pretty successful over the last couple of years. Your numbers are up. The efforts, a lot of volunteers assist in fostering the animals and finding them new homes, so that's been a strategy that's been working pretty well.
Absolutely. We have about 5,000 adoptions or transfers a year, and when I say that, we adopt on site. We also have a great program with 9 of the area pet stores where we do a lot of our cat adoptions out of. So we have a lot of those, probably about 2,500 cat adoptions out of there. And then we transfer with our primary partners of Humane Society and with SPCA, and we have 48 approved rescues. It takes a community to do it, and we need everybody to help, including with our foster program, animals that aren't ready for adoption, who are too sick or too young, need some extra help, and that's where we really need the community to step up.
Now, of course, spaying and neutering are the keys to controlling the dog and cat population. Bob Barker has been talking about it for years. We've been talking about it for years. I know we spay neuter every animal that goes home from Animal Services in the adoptions. Is it easy to do? Is spaying and neutering a pretty easy option for a pet owner to avail themselves of?
Absolutely. And like I said, there's been more and more accessibility to that over the last 5 years with some of the low-cost spay and neutering done by Humane Society, Spot. There's several other organizations. Actually, Humane Society just purchased our old Animalmobile van.
Yes, I heard about that.
Calling
it's
it
wonderful.
the Neuter Scooter, and they're going to be going out into some of the poverty level areas and trying to help and get some spay and neutering happening. But yeah, it is, and I think it's just very important for people to be educated on the importance. Talk to their veterinarian about the importance of spay and neutering their animal, not just for the good of the population, but for the good of the animal.
Now, it seems that if everyone did that, it would solve the problem. We wouldn't have an overpopulation of dogs and cats if they were all spayed and neutered. Why wouldn't somebody spay or neuter their animal?
You know, there's, as some people have said, you know, the good news on this issue, there's a lot of passionate people. The bad news, there's a lot of passionate people. And there's just differing reasons. People, some of it's just personal choice. They just feel that they don't want to spay and neuter their animal. And it's just, again, they talk to their vet. Sometimes there's a legitimate reason where there is a health issue with their animal. That's probably fairly rare. But and then of course there's people that want to breed the animal.
Well, sure.
So there are some different reasons for that.
But these cats and dogs get loose, they get pregnant, and as we heard at the meeting, one unspayed, unneutered cat can create lots of offspring.
Oh yeah, they just can keep them coming, and by the time you're done, you just got hundreds of kittens. And during kitten seasons, we see them all the time, and that's what's so difficult. And one of the things that I learned as I came into the animal business is when these kittens are so young, if they don't have their mother and they come in, they're not viable yet, and so it takes a lot of energy to try to save them, and a lot of times you just can't because they need their mother's milk, and so you've got this beautiful litter of kittens and they can't be saved, and it's very heartbreaking.
All right, two strategies kind of emerged at the meeting. One was a program called Trap, Neuter, Vaccinate, Release. Yes. The other, and a lot of people were in favor of mandatory spay neutering, although a government agency, the word mandatory sometimes rubs them the wrong way. Which of these strategies is the more viable, and is there any way that we can perhaps employ any of these strategies in the future?
Well, what the Commission talked about with mandatory spay and neuter was really we've had a decreasing impound rate for the last 5 years, so we're headed in the right direction. Obviously have a long way to go, and didn't want to go as far as to say we're going to mandate everybody to do that. There's a lot of claims out there that just reduces people going into their vet because they don't want to, if they don't want to spay and neuter their animal, they're just going to avoid veterinary care in general. Sometimes people avoid licensing fees. So the claims are that there's a lot of unintended consequences. So really the Commission really wants us to move forward again with really pushing hard on voluntary spay and neutering, educating people on the importance of responsible pet ownership and spay and neutering. They did look at, we are going to go back with them with differential licensing fees. So if you have an intact animal, you haven't spayed and neutered, an incentive because you'll pay a higher rate for that license. We have higher impound rates at the shelter. As of October 1, it'll be $100 if you come to reclaim your animal versus $60 if it's an intact animal, although we will waive that fee, and for a lesser fee, do a spay and neuter on your animal, and about 300 people take advantage of that. So there's other ways that we want to continue work with our partners to really try to maybe keep a good trend going, and I think all the partners are on board with that.
And will you be pursuing a trap, neuter, vaccinate, release strategy?
Yeah, what the Commission decided on that, we did a lot of research on trap, neuter, vaccinate research, and of course everybody agrees cats are better inside. It's better for the cats, it's better for wildlife, it's better for humans. That being said, a lot of people are out there feeding cats, and we have an overpopulation of cats out there. And so what we said is, and what the Commission agreed with, if there are certain parameters that are followed by this credible 501c3 group that wants to really give this a try, they're going to have to do several different things. They're going to have to come back before any ordinance changes are done. They'll have to come back, and they will have to show their full business plan with their financial sustainability, their liability, and more important, their metrics of how they're really going to show the critical metric, which is that they're doing this and thus reducing the pet population out in the community, and at the same time trying to educate people that really cats are always going to be better indoors.
Sounds like it's a big job, though. There are so many cats out there, and if you just vaccinate them and spay them by onesies, it would take forever to bail out the ocean, if you will.
It is, and that's why, the literature shows you have to hit a certain amount of a very high percentage of these cats to make a real difference, and that'll be up to this group to bring forward a business plan that can show that it's a viable alternative and makes sense for the community to try to do this pilot, and it would be a pilot program. But again, there's some pretty viable partners on the table, Humane Society, SPCA, and some credible business people as well who really want to try to put forward a business plan, and the Commission's open to listening to that. They expressed that it seemed like a reasonable way to go. They're anxious to see the business plan, and only then would we open up the ordinance.
All right, Mo, we'll be looking for more information on that subject a little further down the road. Thanks very much for being with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank my guest on this part of the show, Mo Freaney, Director of Pinellas County Animal Services. Well, if you're in the market for a new pet for your household, where are the best places to shop around? Well, coming up after the break, Dr. Caroline from Pinellas County Animal Services shares some advice on how to best shop for the perfect pet. Stay with us. And we're back. Welcome back to For the Love of Animals, a presentation of Pinellas County Animal Services and Inspiration AM 1110 WTIS. I'm Len Szynski with the Pinellas County Communications Department. If you're looking to add a new dog or cat to your family, our first recommendation is a trip to Pinellas County Animal Services to look over all the dogs and cats up for adoption there. And any one of our rescue shelter partners have great selections of adoptable pets as well. But there are other ways to acquire an animal, some good, some not so good. With me today to share some advice on the subject is Dr. Caroline, Director of Veterinary Services for Pinellas County Animal Services. Dr. Caroline, hello, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, Len?
Good to see you sitting over there again this morning.
Same here.
Well, you know, people can shop online for just about anything these days, and that includes dogs and cats. And let me ask you this. I mean, people's first choice ought to be Pinellas County Animal Services. We have tons of lovable and adoptable dogs and cats just ready to go home with people that come in the door. But if somebody wants to do some online shopping at home, is that a good idea to try to find a dog or a cat online?
I always like people to be really cautious when they're looking online for a pet. And you never want to make a decision until you've met the pet in person and made sure it's a good fit. There are a lot of great ways you can look online for animals and get them through either one of our local shelters like Animal Services or the SPCA or Humane Society or Rescue. And Pet Finder, www.petfinder.com, is a great resource. And they've got, you can search all sorts of different ways, whether you want dogs, cats, certain ages, certain breeds. And that can really be a great way that you can kind of look around if you have something very specific that you're looking for. Find out where the animal might be and then make arrangements to go and see that. That being said, there's a lot of other online options as well, from breeders to Craigslist, things like that. And I typically recommend people try and stay away from those overall because those typically contribute to the issues with pet overpopulation that our shelters and rescue groups are trying to fight.
And what are some of the pitfalls that you might fall into if you go to a Craigslist ad, for example?
Well, one of the things that you're going to run into with a Craigslist ad is that your animal typically isn't going to be spayed or neutered prior to you getting it. Okay. So that's a big cost for you once you've gotten the pet. You don't really typically have a whole lot of information. If the animal's being given away for free, it doesn't need to come with a health certificate. But if you're paying for that animal at all, you should get a veterinary health certificate that is been issued within 30 days where that animal has been examined by a veterinarian to make sure it's free from all health and congenital defects. Also shows proof of its first vaccinations, deworming, and diagnostic testing if indicated. And that's extremely important that you get that with any animal that you were to purchase from anyone. However, you do find some people on sites like Craigslist that aren't providing health certificates with the animals. And in those cases, that needs to be reported to us at Animal Services. But something buyer beware, because there's a lot of protections afforded to you with that health certificate if you have issues with your animal's health.
A lot of fake photos online as well, I understand.
Yes, and we can run into that too. And so you might see a photo of an animal or make arrangements or payment for an animal and then get there and it's a different animal. It's not the animal you wanted. So those are things to keep in mind.
Now, pet stores, it seems the obvious place to go looking for a pet is a pet store, and certainly all our pet store partners in the Pinellas County area have good reputations and can be trusted, but I understand that you have to be cautious when dealing with a pet store.
You do, and our pet store partners in the area like PetSmart and Pet Supermarket and Petco, they're all offering for adoption rescued animals. And so the animals the cats that you see for adoption come from our facility or other rescue partners. The dogs that are offered for adoption are all rescued animals. We get some concerns when we run into pet stores that actually sell puppies. And what we find is that we have a lot of dogs, especially in Pinellas County, that need homes. And by the pet stores intervening with the puppies that they have, that's taking away adoptive homes from the dogs that really, really need to be adopted. And oftentimes the prices at the pet stores are very, very elevated for the animal that you're getting. Now, typically with the pet store, you are going to get a certificate of health from the veterinarian that works with the pet store. I always ask people to be a little bit cautious because you're still going to have the cost of spaying and neutering that pet. And so oftentimes it's a much better deal to adopt a pet, be a little bit more patient, and adopt through a rescue or a shelter.
And what are puppy mills exactly?
So the typical description of a puppy mill is a facility where dogs are being used for breeding. Typically they're confined or kept pretty closely confined in kennels, and they're just kept to produce puppies. There's not a lot of socialization. It's not really a home environment. It's definitely more of a business enterprise. And, exactly where the pet stores get their puppies, there's some debate. Some people say it's puppy mills. Some of them do. Some people say it's not, and it's not. They can get their puppies from a variety of different places. But the fact of the matter is we're supporting dog breeding by doing that, where potentially these animals aren't coming from the greatest environment. We're not holding them to as high standards as we'd like. And again, we're contributing to the pet overpopulation issues that we face in our county.
If you're looking for a particular kind of dog, and you mentioned that some people want a purebred dog with papers going back to, Queen Anne, where do you go to find a dog like that? A dog that's going to win the dog show,
Correct. And if you can contact a rescue of that particular breed, that's a great way to go. But also contacting breeders, especially breeders that show their dogs a lot, that are well known in the community. A good breeder is going to be able to answer all of your questions, is going to let you come out to their facility, is going to let you meet the mother and the father, is going to be very, very informative about the puppies that you're getting, and is going to be able to show you, as far as, certification that the mom and dad don't have things like hip dysplasia or eye problems or heart issues. That's what you want to look for. And I'll tell you, Lynn, if you really want a purebred dog that's well bred, you're going to get what you pay for. And so if you're looking for a good deal and you want a well-bred, purebred dog, those two things don't go together. If you're getting a well-bred, purebred dog, you're going to pay for it, and it's going to be worth it, but it's going to cost you some money. So if you're looking to save some money there, you really ought to be going more the rescue route as opposed to trying to get a puppy.
So going from the purebred breeder, and you might spend hundreds of dollars on a dog,
in some cases,
to the lady down the street that has a box full of puppies and is just trying to give them away. Is there anything wrong with looking for a new dog down the street in that situation?
There's really not. And I really encourage people, if they're going to not come to a shelter or something like that they try and help out locally. And what you're getting, though, if you're taking one of those free puppies, is it's probably had no medical care. So you're going to have, although the puppy's free, you're going to have a lot of costs involved with getting it dewormed and vaccinated and spayed or neutered. So I just think you need to be cognizant of that. And it's possible that puppy could have an underlying health problem that you're not going to find out about until you get it to the vet, which in rare cases can be heartbreaking.
What happens if a dog or a cat adopts you? What happens if you find a stray? You're looking around and you can't see where this dog came from, but boy, he sure seems to like you, and he sure seems to be at your home. Is there any reason why you shouldn't just take that dog in if you've got a big heart? Ruin your home?
We encourage people who find stray animals, if they can, and they're interested in adopting the animal, to keep it, at their home as opposed to bringing it into the shelter. But there's a few things they need to do to make sure they've done due diligence so that if that animal has an owner, it gets back to the owner. The first thing is taking it to your local veterinary clinic or to Animal Services so we can scan it to make sure it doesn't have a microchip. Also contacting Animal Services and filing a found report so that if somebody comes in looking for a pet of that description, we can get them in contact with you so that pet can go home. Because even if it seems like that pet fits in well, if it's a member of somebody else's family, it really should go back to their family. And typically how it works is if you've filled out a found report, you've had that pet for 30 days and no owner comes forward, that pet is yours. And so at that point, taking it to the vet and making sure that it's up to date on everything is really important. But just using caution until you've taken it to the vet. That pet might be carrying parasites or fleas or things like that could potentially infect you or your other pets. So, potentially consulting with your veterinarian sooner if you have other animals in the home is always a good idea.
So I wanted to ask you a quick checklist. If I get a dog from any source, and I know from Animal Services they are spayed and neutered, they're up to date on their rabies vaccination, but if I get a dog from any source, give me a quick checklist of what I should do immediately with that animal.
I think immediately, even if you get a dog or a cat from us, you need to establish a relationship with your veterinarian and have your veterinarian evaluate your pet, see what's been done as far as health care, and make sure that everything is up to date as far as preventive health care. You want to make sure that you've got good ID on that animal, so a collar, their county license, an ID tag with your phone number. A microchip is really important. And making sure that you have, a nice bed for them, some food and water, a litter box if they're a kitty. All of those things, I think, need to be your first priorities.
And a dog or a cat makes a wonderful addition to the family.
They sure do.
But you want to just be careful where you get that animal, and you want to make sure you treat it well once it's yours.
Definitely.
All right, Dr. Caroline, thank you so much for being with us today. I'd like to thank my guest on this segment of the program. She's wonderful as always, Dr. Caroline, Director of Veterinary Services for Pinellas County Animal Services. Remember, if you have a question for Dr. Caroline, simply email it to us at animals@pinellascounty.org, and we'll give you the answer on a future edition of For the Love of Animals. Well, coming up after the break, we'll find out more information about the pets we love and some of the important programs provided by Pinellas County Animal Services. You stay with us. Well, welcome back to For the Love of Animals. I'm Len Szynski with the Pinellas County Communications Department. They used to be called seeing eye dogs, German shepherds who were seen guiding people with visual disabilities along neighborhood streets and sidewalks. Well, the term is service dogs these days, animals specifically trained to assist people with disabilities to lead productive lives. Now, watching some of them work is almost like watching a magic act, but it's not magic that makes these dogs so dedicated. It's a lifetime of continual and ardent training that gives these dogs such noble purpose. With me today to talk about the life of a service dog is Media Relations Manager for Southeastern Guide Dogs, Jennifer Bement. Jennifer, hello, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You have a guest with you today. Unfortunately, this is radio, and people aren't going to be able to see this wonderful dog that you brought with you today.
I know. I brought Coasty along. He wanted to come back to Clearwater.
And he is an example of a service dog in training. He's a year and a half old, you told me.
He is.
And when will he be old enough to be a service dog?
Typically, they're matched when they're about 2 years old. He just came back onto campus from his puppy raiser, so now he's in the formal aspects of his training when he works with our certified guide dog trainers, and that takes about 6 months to learn exactly what he needs to know to be a guide dog for someone.
It's a lot of tough lessons that he has to learn.
They have a big responsibility. They're responsible for keeping someone safe.
Yeah, absolutely, and
so
helping them to lead productive lives, as we mentioned in the intro. First of all, I remember growing up, you saw a lot of German shepherds assisting visually impaired people and other handicapped people, but there are no German shepherds in your organization. Why is that?
No, that's correct. German shepherds were the first type of guide dogs that were used in the United States. We found, though, for our purposes, that Labrador retrievers, golden retrievers, and a mix of the two that we call a Goldador actually make really great guide dogs. Plus, they can acclimate a little bit better to the heat and humidity that we have here in Florida.
And that's so important because it is awful hot out there, and they have to be able to withstand the heat. What's the criterion now for being a bona fide service dog? What do you look for? What are the criteria, and what does a dog have to achieve?
Well, according to the ADA, to be a service dog, the service dog has to have been trained to mitigate someone's disability.
Okay.
So in the case of guide dogs, the dogs are trained to guide that person and get them safely from point A to point B. Therefore, they are deemed a service dog. So any dog that is trained to mitigate a person's disability could be deemed a service dog.
Now, of course, service dogs, by law, they are permitted where other dogs perhaps are not permitted. And service dogs in training enjoy that same privilege.
That's correct. Actually, that's how Coasty got his name. His puppy raiser was going to take him to the Jazz on the Bay, and they were turned away. So it became an education point at that point. So she reached out to the city of Clearwater, and they apologized for the incident. They did some education with their staff members, and they decided to sponsor Coasty.
Now, I understand that service dogs at work or in training are identified as such. They wear a certain a vest or a harness or something that identifies them as a service dog?
Some service dogs do. Our dogs wear, when they're puppies in training, they wear a coat, a bright blue coat that has our logo on it. When it's an actual guide dog that's working, they wear a harness that they are used to guide someone. But a service dog doesn't necessarily need to have any kind of identifying markings. So long as that dog has been trained to mitigate that person's disability and that person can show that, then they can be they're deemed a service dog and they have access rights.
Because obviously people in the audience are going to want to be able to identify a service dog if they see one in public, to differentiate that dog from a dog that's just along for the ride.
Absolutely. And a lot of people do have vests that their service dogs wear. Like I said, guide dogs wear a harness. So that certainly makes it easier to identify them.
Okay, what's the first step? When does the training begin? I know you work with puppies.
We do. We breed all of our dogs on campus. And all of the puppies are born there. So we start their training right from birth. They're handled right away. After a couple of days, they go into puppy education, where we start exposing them to different stuff that they might run into a little bit later on to see how they respond to it. When they're 6 weeks old, they move into puppy hugging, which is a great thing for the community. We're the only guide dog school that allows the general public to come in and help us socialize our guide dogs. So you come in, you make a reservation, come sit on the floor in our puppy hugging room.
Sounds like a fun job.
And we let out puppies to play with. I mean, really, you can't get much better than that. And then when the dogs are about 9 to 10 weeks old, they'll go out and live with volunteer puppy raiser families. And here in Pinellas County, we actually have 4 groups of puppy raisers. And we're always looking for new puppy raisers because we have adorable puppies that are ready to go out to puppy raiser homes. And so they'll have that dog for a year to a year and a half and teach it basic obedience and love it, and also expose it to every aspect of life. So wherever a guide dog might go later in life, we want our puppies to go there when they're young, so that they gain that confidence that they'll need to be a guide dog.
So in about 2 years, they get all that training, they're acclimated, they're ready to go, they graduate from guide school, training school. When they meet their first new master, is there additional training that they have to undergo?
Yes, absolutely. There's a 26-day in-residence training that all of the guide dog teams go through. So they come and live on our campus for 26 days. The training starts out around the campus, which has been built specifically to work with training. And then they kind of build on that training and go out into the world. They go out to downtown Sarasota, they go to downtown Bradenton, and it kind of all culminates by going to Tampa and crossing 8 lanes of traffic, which,
oh my goodness, I
don't know about you, but I get nervous crossing that much traffic as a sighted person.
I would get nervous if a police officer stopped all the traffic, I think.
Exactly. So and they live with us over those 26 days, and the really remarkable thing is they pay nothing for the dog or for the training that they receive or for the lifetime follow-up care. It's all thanks to the generosity of the community.
Now, you train most of your dogs to deal with visually impaired individuals.
That's correct.
And now, are there other skills taught to dogs that work with other disabilities, the wheelchair assistance dogs or the hearing impaired? Or I know you hear about dogs that perhaps are trained to recognize if someone is going to experience a seizure.
That's correct. We don't train those types of dogs, but there are schools that work with different service dogs that train them in those aspects that would work for them. Not all of our dogs are cut out, though, to be guide dogs. Mm-hmm. Some have shown that they have sensibilities in other areas. So we have a number of different programs that they could go into, one of them being a veteran service dog. And those dogs are taught to mitigate the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, to kind of ground their handler and allow them to enjoy, a fruitful life.
As a service dog goes into work, is he always on duty? Would Coastie always be on duty, or do they get time off every now and again to be a regular dog?
Oh, they get plenty of time off. Coastie actually right now is not working. He is laying at my feet, which is wonderful. He's nice and warm. But yes, they do get time. Whenever they're out of harness, then they're just a regular dog, and they can run and play and whatever, just like a regular dog does.
It's amazing that they know the difference, that when they put on the harness, it's time to go to work. And they know to do that, and they're very good at differentiating those two modes of their life.
Well, and that's why we use the coats when the dogs are young. It teaches them that when they have that coat on, that it's time to work. So then they realize that, when I have my harness on, it's time to work then.
And how long do they work? When is it time for a service dog to be retired? And then what happens to the dog?
Right. Well, they're older. They're large breed dogs, so they tend to live to be about 10. Their training is done when they're about 2 years old, so they have about 8 years of working life, depending on the dog and the type of work that they're doing. The handler has such a strong bond with the dog that they know when it's time to retire them. And there's a number of things that they can do with that dog for retirement. If they have the ability, they can keep the dog at their home with them when they get their successor dog, which is great. The dog might get a little confused that it's not getting to go out when the new dog goes out, but they could also go live with a family member of the handler, which that happens quite often, and that's another great way, because then the dog gets to see their handler every once in a while, but doesn't have to worry about him going out and working without him. One of the coolest things that they could do, though, is to go back to their puppy raiser home, and we've had that happen.
Do they remember?
They absolutely, these dogs never forget. They know that puppy raiser and they love that puppy raiser, and so they always get really excited when they see them. So it kind of brings it full circle if they retire with their puppy raiser.
I would imagine it would be the best dog in the world to have. They're good dogs. They're so well behaved.
They are. They're amazing. I wish my dogs were this well behaved.
What is the demand for service dogs now? Do you have a waiting list? Are there people waiting to be placed with service dogs?
There is a waiting list. It runs anywhere from a couple of months up to a year, depending on the special needs that you have, because we match our dogs very, very carefully with their handlers. We want to make sure that their personalities match, that their pace and pull matches, that dog is the perfect dog for that person, because we want to make sure that they have a nice long working life. So there is a waiting list, and unfortunately as the population ages, there's more and more call for guide dogs use. There are a lot more people that are becoming visually impaired as they get older.
If you come upon a service dog at work now, what is the most important thing to remember about interfacing with that dog?
Most important thing is that you need to talk to the handler and not to the dog. So you should not try to distract the dog. That dog, especially guide dogs, have such a hard responsibility. They are, really responsible for that person's safety. And if you try to distract them while they're working, then that could be dangerous for the team. So you obviously want to not bother them when they're trying to cross the street or doing something like that. But even if they're just laying down and look like they're not doing anything, you certainly want to ask the handler before you can pet their dog.
Absolutely.
It's only good manners.
All right, Jennifer, real quick, if someone were interested in getting involved with raising service dogs, how might they contact you?
You can look us up on the internet at guidedogs.org. And actually, if you want to talk about raising a puppy, it's guidedogs.org/raise a puppy. You can connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter.
All right, Jennifer, thank you very much. I'd like to thank my guest this time around, Jennifer Bement from Southeastern Guide Dogs, along with Guide Dog in Training Coastie. We remind you that Pinellas County Animal Services is always looking for volunteers of all ages. If anyone in our broadcast audience is interested in volunteering their time, complete information is on the Animal Services website. Just go to animals@pinellascounty.org and send us an email, pinellascounty.org/animal services. Well, coming up after the break, we go to the mailbag to answer some of your questions about cats and dogs when we come back. And we're back. Welcome back to For the Love of Animals, a presentation of Pinellas County Animal Services and Inspiration AM 1110 WTIS. I'm your host, Len Szynski, and joining me right now is John Hohenstern, Senior Animal Control Officer at Pinellas County Animal Services. John, how are you?
Good morning, Len. Pretty good. How are you today?
My good friend John, always doing this segment of the program, our mailbag.
Anywhere else on Saturday morning?
Oh, boy, it's really, really great. We went to the mailbag here, and amazingly, there was a compliment here. We wanted to share that with everybody out there. First off, we don't get a lot of these, a lot more complaints than compliments. But here's Myrna from St. Petersburg. She says, I recently moved from out of state to St. Petersburg and went to Animal Services to register my dog. I would like to compliment you on both your staff and facility. I was very impressed with the friendliness and professionalism of everyone I came into contact with. Also, I was extremely impressed by your facility. It was very clean, odor-free, and quiet for a facility dealing with dogs and cats. I don't know how quiet it is, they'll never mistake that place for the library.
Yeah, well, maybe she got there at feeding time and everybody had something better to do. Or whatever,
but that's nice.
It is very nice.
This is not out of the ordinary. No. It is a very nice facility. The staff is very dedicated. A lot of volunteers spend a lot of their time dealing with these animals.
Yeah, we do, or whatever. And, it's very nice to hear, or whatever. We perform great feats, and we like it when people recognize
Well,
that.
I think sometimes the people in Pinellas County just take us for granted.
Yeah.
Here's somebody coming from out of town, perhaps used to whatever animal control facility they have in her hometown, and now she sees our facility and is very impressed.
It's a $4 million purpose-built facility. It is we're one of the best shelters in the entire country.
Absolutely, and if people haven't visited lately, if they've never visited, they need to come down on the weekend and just take a look at the facility, take a look at the murals for mutts that we have on the lobby wall.
Right, and we go back way farther than the lobby. Most of the public just see the lobby and the adoption area there, but we're sitting on about 7 acres right there or whatever, and we've got many different buildings. So we've got a great facility.
All right, to the mailbag, and we've got coyotes are back in the mailbag this week. John, Tony is his name, from Palm Harbor. He says, my rear property line is also the property line of John Chestnut Park. Have you been advised, or has there been any reports of the presence of coyotes in John Chestnut Park? That's my first question to you. We know coyotes are everywhere.
Yeah.
Are they in the parks?
Yeah. Sure there are. Wherever there's going to be a quiet habitat where they can hang out, I'm sure they're probably in just about every park.
Well, should park goers be concerned?
No, not really. Coyotes are timid. They're just after food. And, most of the coyote sightings or whatever that we get, it's either, really early in the morning, really late at night when they're out and about looking for something to eat.
And we have to underscore the fact that parks are wild areas, and wild animals are in the parks.
There's deer.
There's alligators in the lakes,
right.
and we always caution people not to let their dogs walk too close to the shore of the lake.
Right. Keep your dog on a leash if you're taking them for a walk. Definitely.
Snakes sometimes inhabit the park, and you will encounter a snake on occasion. But just as with anything else in life, you have to exercise caution, obey the signs, and just keep your wits about you sometimes.
Right. Yeah. Keep your dog on a leash and keep it close to you. But the coyotes are everywhere.
Having said that, here's a letter from Kathy of St. Petersburg. She says, what, if anything, is the county doing to eradicate the coyote invasion? This is becoming a great concern for our neighborhood, as the coyotes are killing our pets and wandering down our streets in the middle of the day. They're very nonchalant sometimes, very brazen, these coyotes. But I've heard this from a lot of people. They feel that Pinellas County, the county government, ought to be doing something to capture and eradicate these animals. Maybe Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission ought to be on the bandwagon. Are any of those strategies practical? Can we ever get rid of coyotes?
Well, no. California spent millions of dollars to try to eradicate coyotes, and they were unsuccessful.
Why is that? Why are they so tough to?
They seem to know when there's a crush on their population, and then they start to breed out to fill in where the gaps are.
Oh, my goodness.
So you really can't. It's a food source issue. There is some source of food in their neighborhood that the coyotes are moving in on. Whether it's, unsecured garbage, pet food left outside, outside cats. There's a reason that they're there. And then, once all those food sources are gone, they'll move on to the next neighborhood. They're only looking for a meal.
Well, I was going to ask you that question because we got a phone call actually from a gentleman who wanted to know, if the county is not going to do anything about it, what can he as an individual do to eradicate coyotes in his neighborhood? And you're telling me it's as simple as removing the food source.
Yeah, that's what we recommend. If the coyote is that much of a nuisance, the neighborhood association can hire a wildlife trapper or rehabber that will move the coyote on at a fee to them or whatever. But I don't know of any trapper that's been successful in catching a coyote in Pinellas County.
Is that so, really? Because there are a lot of them in the yellow pages that will trap raccoons or whatever else is bothering
I know
you.
a lot that have tried or whatever in different communities, some of the beach communities, when they've seen coyotes out, but they've never been successful in catching them.
And it's because of the fact that coyotes are pretty intelligent. They are wily, and just like the cartoon coyote.
Right, and they know it's a trap, and they're going to move on to where the next easiest meal is.
So basically, that's it. Keep the food sources covered up. Don't let them.
Secure your garbage in secured cans. Don't leave pet food outside. Even bird seed.
Yeah.
Coyotes are omnivores. They'll eat just about anything. So So, don't leave anything out overnight. Don't leave your dogs and cats out overnight. Keep them in. And
keep those cats inside. If people would only learn to do that, because they're like little tidbits to coyotes. Cats are little
unfortunately,
tidbits.
that's true. I mean, they look like rabbits, you know. So and they're a food source to coyotes.
All right. Here's another letter from Melinda in St. Petersburg. Now, Animal Services, people think all kinds of animals are under your control. She says here, Melinda says, I'm wondering what the city or county can do for farm animals within the city of St. Petersburg. Now, here's a St. Petersburg problem. But she says there's a neighbor that has goats, rabbits, that could be wild rabbits, who knows, pigs. But the upshot is that she's wondering, how can people be permitted to have farm animals in a residential neighborhood? And the long and the short of it is they can't be permitted, but it's not Animal Services jurisdiction to control that.
No, that'd be a city of St. Petersburg ordinance or whatever that prevents that. So she needs to get in touch with the city of St. Petersburg.
Now, we have to underscore the fact that even in unincorporated Pinellas County, it's a zoning and land use issue. There are certain parameters and restrictions that govern farm animals in residential neighborhoods, and that is the zoning and land use department. And it would be either the City Hall code enforcement or Pinellas County code enforcement if you're in the unincorporated neighborhood.
Right. Pinellas County Animal Services primarily deals with domestic dogs and cats.
Right.
I mean, if it is an absolutely blatant animal cruelty case, no matter what the animal is, we'll probably look into it and make sure that everything's the way it's supposed to be, and then get some of our shelter partners involved, the SPCA and the Humane Society, to help us if it's a large animal that we're not used to, housing.
Now, we have to underscore the fact that chickens are allowed in the city of St. Petersburg, I believe, as well as
but not roosters.
Unincorporated Pinellas County, and once again, there are strict rules that govern backyard chickens.
Right.
No roosters. You're right about that.
Yeah. No one should know that you have chickens, other than the fact that I guess you offer them eggs or something. So.
But once again, if you have problems with chickens, don't call Animal Services.
No,
call Pinellas County Code Enforcement.
Yes.
So that puts that to rest. All right. We've talked about the leash law a lot on this program, and people sometimes misinterpret the leash law. It's not, the ordinance is not that the dogs have to be on the leash. The ordinance is what, John?
It says that they have to be under their owner's command, and we will recognize voice or hand signals or whatever as long as the dog actually obeys those signals.
All right. Now, here's a letter from Paul of St. Petersburg. He says he was walking around the corner the other day through his neighborhood. He kept walking. He saw a dog in a driveway without a leash on. He moved to the other side of the street. When he started to get near the dog ran at him, barking. He got within a few feet of Paul, so Paul yelled at it. Then the owner gets out from the van and says, "Oh, the dog usually stays right here with me." At that point, the dog approaches Paul again. Paul screams at the owner, and the owner finally held up a dog treat, and the dog ran to the owner. Now, that is not what we mean when we say that the dog is under your verbal command.
The dog is not under control. No, that dog needs to be on a leash. And if it is in a city, I know the city of St. Petersburg actually has a strict leash law for dogs.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah, the city does itself. That the county will recognize, like I said, the hand signals and the voice command. But if your dog is closer to someone else than it is to you, there's a problem.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
But I did not know that about the municipalities. So in this case, you might call City Hall and get some satisfaction.
You could or whatever. There's a city ordinance about dogs being on a leash.
But once again, use some common sense.
We live in the most densely populated county in the entire state, and people come here from where they have acres, or here your next door neighbor is right next door, so you need to be a little more understanding. Paul should have the right to walk down the street without meeting your dog.
And your dog may be friendly and everybody in the family loves him, but if he sees a stranger, who knows how he's going to react.
Yeah, dogs are territorial, and the more you let them kind of run around, the more of the territory they consider their own, and it's kind of a recipe for failure.
Or, if you really have to take your dog to dog training classes and make sure that he does obey those voice commands. I know there are a lot of good dogs out there that are very, very well behaved, very well trained. That's one situation, but boy, those are far and few between.
That is true. I mean, anything that causes you to spend some time with your dog, hey, we encourage that. So training is important for the owner and the dog.
Keep the dog on the leash.
That's the easy part.
Let that be the end of it. Okay, John, thanks very much. Well, that brings us to the end of of our program, I want to thank our guest this time around, John Hohenstern, Senior Animal Control Officer with Pinellas County Animal Services. You have been listening to For the Love of Animals, presented by Pinellas County Animal Services and Inspiration AM 1110 WTIS. Be sure to be with us next Saturday, 11 a.m. for another episode. And if you have any questions or comments on anything we've talked about on the program, just send us an email at animals@pinellascounty.org or give us a call at area code 727-582-2600. For more information on Pinellas County Animal Services, including photos of the dogs and cats up for adoption this week, go to our website, pinellascounty.org/animal services. Once again, thanks for listening. I'm Len Szynski with the Pinellas County Communications Department. Join us next time for The Love of Animals.